If something is meaningful in any way at all, then it must in some way serve a purpose. Anything that is meaningful because it has meaning in the sense of purpose. In other words, the definition of something is meaningful is something that has purpose. Anything that serves a purpose and meaningfully serves that purpose necessarily arises from that which underlies purpose, which is intention. Intention is the driving force of purpose, that purpose which produces meaning, or creates that which is meaningful. Therefore, the meaning of something can be said to be its purpose. The meaning of a watch is to provide the experiencing mind with information relating to its concept of time. The meaning of a vehicle is to transport, and of course it has to be considered that some things can have different meanings or multiple levels of meaning. The meaning of a leaf is not just that it affords important gaseous exchanges, essential gaseous exchanges to life, or the continuation of carbonic life forms, but also to provide substances, carbon-based substances, such as plant materials and wood, that can be used by the carbonic life forms in the furtherance of secondary and tertiary levels of meaning. So the purpose of something is the meaning of that thing, and the meaning of that thing can be multi-leveled, multi-dimensional, multi-sided, multifaceted. The clearest defining feature of a fish is that it swims through water, so it's associated with water. What is the clearest defining feature of an experiencing mind? What is the clearest defining feature of a human being is an experiencing mind that is capable of communicating through the facility of language, such that the human being, the Homo sapien, swims or moves through a culture such as may be described through language. From the point of the ego, therefore, the meaning of something is its use. The meaning of an idea is its use or value, and the meaning of an object or knowledge of the associations of this object is how it may be used instrumentally to one's purposes, one's pleasures and one's avoidance of displeasures. Or perhaps I should say, to be more precisely accurate, one's perception of the things that bring pleasure and displeasure. By which I mean that there are perceptions of pleasure in a three-dimensional, physical, substantial world that in some way, shape or form relate to the bodily experiences through the sensations or sensory system. And then there is the pleasure of mind, more one might say of soul, that can occur independently of the sensory three-dimensional realm of experiencing. Thus, for example, one may gain pleasure from, not directly from forms themselves, or form itself, but by one's reactions to the forms, such that these reactions can be garnered independently of the forms within mind. This sort of independence of mind for its pleasure upon itself, independently of form, is evidence of growth or maturation of soul. The laws of spirit. The following is an excerpt taken from The Life You Were Born to Live, A Guide to Finding Your Life Purpose by Dan Millman. The laws of spirit. You just give folks a key and they can open their own locks. Robert R. McCammon. Human laws form a basis of social agreement and social order, but human laws are only pale reflections of a higher order of law sewn into the fabric of existence. These laws govern the movement of the earth, the cycle of the seasons, the forces of nature, and the structure of the atom itself. Now, nature didn't make these laws, nature only reveals and demonstrates them. The great laws existed before humanity, before nature. Even the cyclone, the tidal wave, the hurricane, and the raging fire, forces that can lay waste to the highest human enterprise, must work under the dominion of these great laws. Whether we call them natural laws, spiritual laws, or simply higher laws, we cannot seem to alter them. They humble and inspire those who search for order within chaos, as they point to a greater power and mystery at the source of existence. To their music, even the galaxies dance. The natural world reveals these laws to us. The cycles of the seasons, clouds riding the wind, the currents of the river, and the powers of the wind and sea, all teach us how to live by revealing the natural way of life. I refer to these overriding laws as spiritual laws, or laws of spirit. When adapted and applied to the human realm, these laws of spirit become guiding principles that we can use to steer us through the shallows and reefs of life, the way the stars and a compass guided ancient mariners on their own course. Constant as the movement of the planets, they apply not only to the mechanics of nature, but to the human psyche as well. For example, by observing a tree bending in a high wind, and observing that only the rigid branches break, we learn from the tree and wind the secret of yielding and the power of flexibility, or non-resistance. Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Lao Tzu, and other illumined teachers have taught spiritual laws and principles through the use of parables and metaphor about the natural world that also apply to the human social world. For example, the laws of harvest teach that the seeds only reproduce their own kind, that what we sow we reap, and that a seed dies when it stops growing. Any process of growth follows the way of the seed. In order to grow, the seed needs good soil, it takes time to grow into maturity, and it bears fruit of the same kind and quality as itself. When we gather the harvest, we need to save at least 10% for the next planting. We have to end one cycle to begin another. All seeds grow and change and eventually die, to be ploughed under for a fresh planting. Of course, the laws of harvest relate to more than farming. They illuminate our lives and the laws that govern us. As with seeds and cycles, so with human beings and all the beings of creation. Ultimately, all spiritual laws reveal themselves as needed, not necessarily in words, but rather through our deepest feelings, through the intuitive wisdom of our hearts. Our bodies, when free of external programming and interference, abide naturally within these laws, which are communicated through our instincts and subtle intuitive feelings. All we have to do is to pay attention to and trust our inner knower. The mind or ego, our isolated sense of separate self, however, resists the flow of the current of life. But when we align our lives, our habits of diet, exercise, work and sexuality with spiritual laws, challenges remain, but we can approach them without struggle, with arms open wide, like peaceful warriors, embracing the moment and ready to dance.